drivers, start your engine! Entering its 7th season, the Lapped Traffic Podcast has brought you over 300 shows, driver and media interviews, awesome stories and entertainment, and one of the coolest fantasy leagues around. Get ready for another exciting season. Sit back, relax, and try not to get lapped. Now, here's your host, the Professor, Brendan Crown.
Oh, what is up, Lap Traffic Nation? Welcome to episode 322 of the Lap Traffic Podcast. Yes, I am your host, the Professor, Brandon Crowd. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Great to be back behind the mic. Lots to catch up on. Have to talk about this past weekend. Celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary, Lindsay and I did, which was awesome. There's actually a pretty cool story behind this weekend and who we celebrated with on our honeymoon in Aruba 12 years ago, back when the Detroit Tigers used to play meaningful baseball in September and, would make the playoffs. I digress, of course. We were at the swim-up bar at the hotel, and I hear this guy talking about the Tigers. So Lindsay and I go over to say hi. Lo and behold, they lived about 20 minutes from us and now actually live even closer. So 12 years later, they are still some of our best friends who got married the day before we did, and we have celebrated our anniversaries together almost every year since then, which is really cool. We all of our friends know the story as, oh, that's the honeymoon couple. So good times. We celebrated Friday night, went out to dinner, hung out, had some drinks, all that good stuff. Saturday, watched some Michigan football and kind of kicked back and recouped from Friday night. And Sunday was our actual wedding anniversary. Went to the Lions game, which was a blast, much better outcome than last week against Seattle. And we had today off, Monday, and had a 4-day weekend. However, the little guy decided to grace us at 5 a.m., so I am going to go to bed after this, I wish, because I know Lindsay wants to as well. But here we are, lots of racing to talk about, lots of stories to talk about, and no better guest to have on this week, I think, than Dustin Albino from jski.com, who will be on here in just a few minutes. Hope you enjoyed episode 321 with NASCAR Chasm. I mean, that guy's just pure gold every time he is on, and show did pretty well, so I hope you all enjoyed it. Got some lap traffic fantasy, all that good stuff coming up for you throughout the show, so let's not waste any time, because I know Dustin and I we tend to go a minute. We tend to talk some extracurriculars such as wrestling, and you can bank on that. So let's get Dustin Albino on the line. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, joining me on the line for his 17th appearance on the show from jski.com. Welcome back, Dustin Albino. What's up, brother? How you been?
I am doing great. It's number 17, but it's been a while.
It's been a minute. It's crazy. I talked about this last week in terms of, this is the 7th season of the show, and the first 6, it was nothing for me to rock out, 40 plus episodes a season. And this is only episode 22. And it's crazy how much adding one little person can impact things. That's a hobby,
Yeah, I don't have that not problem. I don't know what word to come up with. I don't have that
situation
responsibility.
At the moment. Yeah, it's a good one. Yes.
I don't have that responsibility.
Yes.
So, I totally get where you're coming from there. And you've got, I'm sure, a lot less time on your hands.
Just a little less time. Absolutely. So this worked out, having the day off today to be able to do this in the afternoon and get it published early tonight, which will be good. So what you been up to, man? We were talking before things got started. You've hit some races over the last few weeks here.
Yeah. Do you remember last time I was on?
Oh, episode 308, which was a minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, I went to 7 of the final 10 regular season races. So, I'm glad I was able to get to a lot of first-time venues. I've been to, I think, 5 or 6 first-time venues this year. So like North Wilkesboro in May, but then Nashville, super fun city, super fun track, good race there, and then the Chicago street race. I haven't been a part of something like that in racing yet, so that was really cool that weekend. But yeah, 7 of the final 10, got a few more coming up the rest of the year, and I think we've had a pretty good year racing across the board.
Yeah, no, awesome, man. We'll get to that here in just a second. For anybody, well, it'll be more in a second, but for anybody that has listened to Dustin on the show before, he is a fellow wrestling fan like myself, so we would be remiss if we didn't talk some wrestling, because it has been a minute since he's been on. So we'll start with some wrestling fun here. Let's go back a minute. Let's go back to SummerSlam that was here in Detroit. Got my SummerSlam hoodie on there. What did you think of the show?
Oh man, that seems like so long ago.
Like it was only. I mean, this is. The end of September?
Less than 2 months.
Yeah, less than 2 months. Yeah.
I thought that was a good. I mean, really, all the pay-per-views, even when Vince was in charge, the last couple years of there, I thought all the pay-per-views are really good, or premium live events, I should say.
Yes.
I think, I don't know, right now WWE is hitting on all cylinders, I feel like. And I know there was the recent merger with UFC and Endeavor, so creating TKO, but we got a lot of releases last week. But as far as the SummerSlam show, I thought you witnessed a pretty good show.
It was great. What I loved about it was a great, and I know this is a word not allowed in WWE, but it was a great wrestling show. Like,
it was.
There was a lot of matches. The one thing that I was surprised is that there were no surprises. Like, I didn't want to get my hopes up too much, but the ending happened pretty much like I expected, but I wanted to hear the "if you smell" on SummerSlam night. Like, I mean, I thought that would have been a great setup for the Rock Roman kind of thing. Now, we got it, 2 weeks ago, which was unbelievable. But,
on a random Friday night in the middle of September.
Right, So I'm like, man, missed opportunity there. But no, the show was great. You mentioned a couple things, the merger, the releases. Anything that surprised you from the releases?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, and there's a lot of, I mean, you got to be so talented. You got to have such a good, you got to be so strong mentally to work there, I'm sure, right? Because you're always on the road. You're doing it for years, and then you never know when there could be a release round. And then, unfortunately, that's what there was last week. So, Dolph Ziggler, I mean, he's been there 2 decades nearly, and he's done everything there is. I saw he got a lot of notoriety from like The Rock. He tweeted about him, John Cena. So the respect there across the board is clearly there. There's a lot of indication, it sounds like, that he's going to end up in AEW, but I just don't know if that's a good fit. I don't know if he really needs it either.
Right. He honestly, like you said, the longevity that he's had, I'll never forget his Money in the Bank cash-in. Like that play,
one of the best.
It was off the chain. He could probably, even though AEW is a much more relaxed schedule than WWE, he could probably even go and do a more relaxed, work the indies and make a killing doing the indie scene and just make some random pop-up appearances and, do very well for himself and give some fans, some pretty cool experiences at some smaller indie shows.
And who's to say that's a good point about the cooler, the lower atmosphere. I've been to a few indie shows in the day, and they are, low atmosphere, but then high energy too. And a lot of indie shows there's a lot of talent out there right now that need jobs too, so this only helps the indies potentially, but also I don't even know really if Dolph, I mean, who's to say he even wants to wrestle? He hasn't wrestled in a long time. Really, he hasn't been active on TV for a while.
I don't even know this. It'd be something I'd be curious to go back and look, and maybe was he working house shows? I wonder, like, was he even on the road, or was he just flat out not being used?
I don't think he was being used. I saw a stat last week, like his last match was at the end of May. It was ironically in Albany. I had tickets to go to that show that night. Oh, no kidding. But that was the Coke 600 weekend, and everything got pushed to Monday.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't get to go, but I got my friends some tickets. They went, and they got to see his last match.
That's cool. Nice. That's awesome. That's crazy. That's
also
crazy.
though, I could see him eventually coming back too.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It just cause, we see it all the time. 6 months from now, there could be the biggest return and build and pop surprise on a Monday, whatever the case may be, or Royal Rumble. Could you imagine, his music
right around the
hitting,
corner,
right? So yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I mean, a hell of a run, 20 years. You don't hear that. I remember seeing the stat. He's had the third most televised matches? Second. Okay.
Only televised. It might be third. All time, second only to Kane.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's probably the same thing that I saw. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible to have that type of longevity. Means he took care of himself, wasn't injured a ton. It's just a workhorse,
Yeah, I can't recall him ever being out for an injury.
Yeah.
So that like you said, just shows the longevity of a 2-decade career. Started out with the Spirit Squad all that time ago.
God.
Was Nikki.
Yes. That's a character that you would have expected to have gotten cut too,
right.
That's
all of his brethren did.
Yeah, right.
All of the other squad.
Yep.
I think if I remember, there was 5 of them, 4 or 5, and yeah, they all got cut besides him.
Yeah. They actually just announced a house show for Detroit the week of Christmas, between Christmas and New Year. They're going to do a house show on a Wednesday night.
That's a fun tour. I've gone a couple times between the 26th and 30th. They usually do it.
Yeah.
I went to Buffalo 2 years ago. That was the last show of the year for SmackDown.
Okay.
Super fun. In the live events, if you just pure wrestling, those are the shows to go to, not necessarily TV.
Yeah. And they're not going to break your pocketbook for tickets like SummerSlam.
Speaking of that, I'm going to WrestleMania in Philly.
Nice.
And yeah, I had to get out the wallet for that.
Yeah. So here's what. So I told my wife when SummerSlam came out, when they said it was going to be here, I said, listen, I don't care. I'm going by myself, and I'm getting the best seat that I can get, and I did.
I saw you on TV.
Right? Yeah. You're
right next to the
right
ramp
there. And here's what pissed me off. I was so bummed about this. Because I've been to some pay-per-views, obviously. The last caliper pay-per-view like that was that I was at was WrestleMania 23, before they really started making these weekend event type things. And my cousin and I, we went to Philly for Extreme Rules and saw Bray Wyatt's return and all that. Anybody on the floor always got a ring chair. So I expected that I was getting a SummerSlam ring chair. I did not. It was really just the 4 sections that surrounded the ring that got them. Excuse me. I just had some plastic chair that I sat on. I was so pissed off that I did not get a ring chair, because that was my justification. Well, at least I'm also going to get a ring chair.
Yeah, at least you get some sort of souvenir out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's not the case.
Yeah,
and in order to do that, you got to spend a lot of money.
Yep. Oh man! But anyways,
I'm super excited about Mania. But
are you going both nights?
I am.
Excellent.
So maybe I'll get to see The Rock.
Yeah.
Potentially, it seems like they're kind of leaning towards it. Him and Roman, maybe one of the nights or whatever. But then also Cody's got to finish his story, but I don't know how they get there since they're on separate brands.
Mm-hmm.
Does he win the Rumble again? Who knows? But yeah, whenever The Rock's there, the energy, it's always intensified.
Have you been to that part of Philly before? Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, plenty of times. I've been to the arena you went to,
Wells Fargo.
Was it? Yeah. I went there for the Rumble.
Okay.
And I went there for Elimination Chamber pay-per-view.
Okay. It's a cool little area, between the
it is.
bar.
They got everything.
Yeah.
They got the Xfinity Live. That's the bars, food, and then they got the stadium, the football stadium, the baseball stadium, the basketball arena all together.
Yeah. Yep.
So if there's ever 2 events going on at the same time, I don't think I'd want to be there.
No, right? Yeah, no shit.
Ton of traffic.
All right, 3 more quick things, everybody, and then we'll talk some racing. So, first thing I want to do, we can get somber for a moment with the news about Bray Wyatt, because we haven't chatted since then. I mean, I was my buddies and I we play golf on a Thursday night league, and the 4 of us are wrestling fans, and we're all kind of just scrolling our phones because we're waiting to tee off, and it hit all of our phones at the same time, and it was holy cow, like that out of left field. I felt like what did you think when you heard that?
Certainly. I remember being a Thursday night, the night before I left for Daytona, and I got a text from one of my buddies that works at WWE, and he's like, Bray Wyatt passed away. And I'm like, what? Like, no way. And so then I had to do a double take,
Right.
saw Triple H's tweet, and super unfortunate. And, you've heard, he's been off TV since January or February.
Yeah.
And you kind of, if you read the dirt sheet, you see that there's some kind of illness potentially. And then unfortunately it's ended up being, it took his life. So super sad. I
honestly, when I first saw it, I thought, because I saw it on the dirt sheet, and I'm like, I either was like, either one, no, false, like, someone misinformation, whatever. Then I thought, well, could it be a work around, like The Fiend or something like that? Like, but then when I saw Triple H's tweet, I'm like, no, I think that's serious. That's the real deal there, unfortunately.
Yeah, super sad, all-time creative mind. The amount of characters he was able to create and bring them to life, the Firefly Funhouse, all of the characters that are included, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, multiple incarnations of Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
It's just
it's so
super
bad.
bummed.
Yes, I'm with you. Real quick about the merger, did you see that there is the possibility, and we've already had a couple redesigns, but a complete redesign and new names for belts I saw potentially?
I didn't see that one. I heard that, and obviously it was announced on Friday that SmackDown is going to USA again with the new television deal. I've heard potentially Raw could move off of Mondays and off of USA altogether and NBC. So whether they go streaming with that, who knows?
Yeah.
I've heard it might be a while before we find out, which leads you to even believe further that it's going to come off of Mondays, which would just be crazy because that's the flagship show. Like for me, like I can DVR just about it. I mean, I can DVR any show, right, and watch it back. But Raw is like, for me, it's always been can't miss. Like you have to be there.
Yep.
Even if it's 3 hours long.
Yes. Well, and I wonder if coming off, if they come off Monday, if they come off USA, do they go back to 2? I wonder potentially. And
maybe SmackDown goes to 3.
Yeah. I mean, there's some potential. But like we were talking about at the start, they are kind of hitting it on all cylinders, which will lead me to my last question about wrestling, and then we can get into some NASCAR talk. What storylines are you bought in on? What's got you excited?
I think we've talked about it before, but Gunther, he's like my favorite wrestler right now. That dude is just a beast, and you believe it. You believe everything that's happening whenever he's in the ring, even though you know that it's a show. And he's elevated a ton of talent, whether it be Chad Gable right now or even his own group Imperium. I like Gunther. The Bloodline, for a while, and it still is, I think, the best storyline in history. But it's kind of taken a back burner with Roman being off TV.
Yep.
Since has he been off since SummerSlam?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, but John Cena coming back. I mean, he's my all-time favorite. So it's good to see him back in the ring too.
No, that's been cool. I'm with you on the Bloodline. It's going to be hard to keep that interesting for another year potentially, or until WrestleMania 40 at least. I'm with you on Gunther. I wasn't a fan, but I have bought into the credibility behind the storyline that they've put together. And I'll tell you what, I was not a fan of that Intercontinental redesign. I'm becoming more and more a fan of that belt too, which is funny. For me, I am all in on LA Knight. Like, you couldn't give me enough LA Knight right now to save my life. Like, I love what he's got going on right now, especially, he's not a young guy. He's older, he's getting that last chance run, and I think it's awesome. And, I hope not everybody needs a belt, right? We've seen a number of great wrestlers that never had a singles title, never had a world title. Jake the Snake comes to mind as one of the most that never needed that. Roddy Piper never got the world title, anything like that. He may not need it, but man, I am enjoying this run that he's on.
He's become must-see TV. obviously there's a lot of comparisons to The Rock and Stone Cold, and whether he's taken a little bit from both or none at all or all of it, like it's fun to watch. Also too, I heard and I saw on the dirt sheets that he tested positive for COVID right before SmackDown on Friday. Yeah, but I heard that like WWE issued refunds if people wanted refunds on their tickets, and you don't hear that unless it's a star like Roman Reigns, like John Cena back when he was there full time, Seth Rollins.
100%.
So that shows you how much they're kind of riding him.
Absolutely. Yep. No, he's main event. There is no doubt about that. All right, we can transition. We can talk about racing. Yeah. Well, actually, it's a good segue, honestly, because LA Knight's been taking some heat from Kevin Nash. I don't know if you saw that, and leading to heat. Texas Motor Speedway has been known to take some heat over the years. Is that justified heat? What do you think about Texas in general, there, sir?
And there was a ton of heat in Texas this weekend. I saw it was like the 5th hottest race ever at the Cup level. So kudos to all the drivers. Glad that, they all seem to be fine after the race, because that can take a toll on you for sure. I don't know. Like you said, Texas does get a lot of heat, but it's fairly entertaining, as far as like, You never know the lead car like Larson on this weekend or Justin Allgaier in the Xfinity series. Like you both had command and control of the race, but one little mishap battling for the lead, and your race could be over in Larson's case. Or if you get out of the groove like Allgaier, you're moving backwards, and then it takes you a few laps to get all the dirt off your tires. So I don't know. Like it's certainly going to get a lot of heat. I thought it was a good race all weekend. Honestly, I thought it was probably among the best Texas races on the reconfiguration, just because there was passing too.
There was.
That's one of the things is people are like, oh, you can't pass or whatever. Well, this weekend you could. So I don't know. I thought it was a good weekend of racing overall, and two winners that have kind of dominated the year in their respective series.
Absolutely. Well, that'll lead me right in the next one. John Hunter Nemechek kind of separating himself from the rest of the field. The last time we saw somebody with 7 wins in the Xfinity Series, we were talking about, Tyler Reddick, Cole Custer, and
Bell.
Who was the third guy?
Christopher Bell.
Right, yeah. And here he is, 7. Austin Hill with 4. But it doesn't feel like Austin Hill had 4. I mean, 4 wins is a dominating season, but it doesn't feel like it when, the comparison's John Hunter right now.
And 3 of those for Hill came in the first 5 races. So they were a while ago. The 4th one at Pocono, he didn't have the best car, but was just there when it counts. And I think that's kind of how, he's kind of been steady Eddie all year long, Austin Hill we're talking about, and maximizing the car's potential. So in other ways, John Hunter has 7 wins, but if you look at it, I mean, maybe like Atlanta, he really didn't have a good car, but somehow he was there at the end when he won. He probably should have closer to 10 wins. He would tell you that himself. He should have more than 7. So certainly John Hunter, I mean, that Joe Gibbs Racing cars are just lights out. And if he gets to Phoenix, he's going to be hard to beat.
Absolutely. For everyone that either has or has not listened to know that, the Xfinity Series is something that you've worked on a lot over your career. We're really just started the playoffs, which it doesn't feel like that because the Cup Series has been, we're in the second round. We're in the second round of the Truck Series, but we really just kicked things off on the Xfinity side of things. How would you break down or sum up the regular season for the Xfinity Series?
Regular season. I thought it was a good season. You saw a variety of different winners, multiple guys, handful of guys getting multiple wins in the regular season. It was certainly top heavy, like with John Hunter, Justin Allgaier, Austin Hill. But then you have like a Cole Custer who's, on the rebound, goes back to the Xfinity Series, has 2 wins on road courses this year. You've seen breakout performances, granted they're at the beginning of the year, like with Chandler Smith and Sammy Smith. You kind of see drivers who have a ton of potential, like a Sheldon Creed or Parker Kligerman. Like Parker's having a great first year back into the Xfinity Series. So ton of good storylines. You had 2 big teams miss the playoffs entirely with Riley Herbst and Brandon Jones. So whenever there's a points battle at the bubble for the regular season, like Riley and Parker were separated by 1 point going into the final race. Like that's a good battle. So I think overall the Xfinity Series had a really good year, but yeah, John Hunter has kind of run away in terms of the wins category.
Absolutely. A couple things I just want to piggyback off of, maybe get a deeper take from you. Cole Custer, like you mentioned, going back to the Xfinity Series, we've seen some guys do that from the Cup Series. Justin Allgaier comes to mind and has had a ton of success in the Xfinity Series. There were such high hopes and expectations for Cole Custer in the Cup Series. Didn't happen. Maybe he'll get another chance. But that first few, I want to say first 6 races looked very rough for Cole Custer, and he was able to rebound, which has been fun to watch.
Yeah, 6 races spot on. He didn't have top 10s in any of the first 6 races.
Really? Is that that's awesome? Not awesome, but I thought my math was pretty close there.
Meanwhile, at the time, Riley Herbst, I think, had 6 top 10s. And then since then, it's kind of like gone the other way, and Riley's had a lot of bad racing luck, whereas Cole, he's only got the 2 wins this year, and they've both been on road courses. One of them on the Chicago Street Course, which, didn't even get to the halfway point.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like I think myself included, and probably you included, and probably most racing fans, right? Like they probably thought Cole Custer was going to come back, kind of dominate the series like he did 4 years ago.
Right.
Same
team,
4 or 5 years
everything.
ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. To a degree. They did have, whereas, I guess they ran a partial second team that year. Maybe no, Briscoe was full-time. So yeah. two full-time teams. Herbst's full-time now, obviously with the 98. So I think, Cole's got a ton of potential. He says the season's been a success. He thinks it's been a good year. And the competition level, too, at the Xfinity level is really an all-time high throughout the field, from top to bottom. The mid-pack is stacked. A ton of resources and funding in the mid-pack who are trying to take that next step to become a top team. I expected more from Cole, but I would also think and expect he'll be in Phoenix battling for a title again.
No, I'm with you. I think we're looking at, John Hunter, obviously, Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, and then it's a matter of who gets that 4th spot. They're not racing this weekend at Talladega. Will the Roval play as a wild card? Austin Hill very well could be there. But if Sheldon Creed or Sammy Smith picked up a win or pointed their way in, I wouldn't be horribly surprised over that. I think the biggest, Parker Kligerman making the playoffs in the Xfinity Series is a win for that team. Any advancement, I think, is just an extra bonus at this point. But, I don't want to use the word disappointed, but to go from winning a championship and just kind of falling off the map with Daniel Hemrick, that team has just literally struggled since they won that championship.
Talking about Hemrick?
Yeah.
Well, we got to remember that was with Gibbs.
That's true.
And now and he's in the 10. And colleagues really kind of struggled across the board this year, aside from at the beginning of the year with Chandler Smith. And then you put in some of the Cup drivers on the road courses, or like Larson at Darlington earlier in the year, and they're going to win. They're going to be up front. But that 10 team has struggled at times this year. He's still got 14 top 10s. He's got more top 5s this year than last. But you're looking at the points battle going into the cutoff race, and you got Creed +9, Hemrick +1, Kligerman -1. Creed's a good road racer. Kligerman's a great road racer. I give the advantage to Kligerman. I think Hemrick's probably bounced out.
Sure. No, I don't disagree with that. All right, let's move over to the Cup side of things. Byron picking up the win. Byron's somebody that has gone, he won early too. That's kind of someone like Austin Hill. He won early in the season, had a win in August, and is turning it up now. HMS just a very weird year for them in general with the injuries and 2 top teams of theirs missing the playoffs that have given some other teams an opportunity. Where are you at coming out of Texas with William Byron getting the win and where things are looking right now?
Going into the playoffs, Byron was my championship favorite. I thought he was my pick to win it. I just think the 24 team, while the 19 team has showed glimpses of greatness this year, and this I'm saying is going into the postseason, and Hamlin and Larson being really fast and turning up the wick in the playoffs. I just think Byron's been one of the most consistent, at least at the most consistent speed all season. Maybe the finishes aren't the most consistent, but he's won at every different style of tracks, whether it be a drafting track in Atlanta, a short track earlier in the year, Phoenix, Vegas, mile and a half. He's won all over the place and all the different layouts. So I think that's the most consistent team. Not shocked that he won at Texas, kind of shocked in the way that he did. He was kind of a 10th place car for the majority of the race. I think his average running position was 13th. And yet he ends up in victory lane, punches his ticket to the round of 8, and now they can work on Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. And they're set up good to make a championship run, I think.
Sure. What about surprises? McDowell, with the, I guess maybe you call it a surprise win to get into the playoffs.
I picked it. I picked him to win Indy. I did.
That's awesome. So he missed the cut. Logano, Stenhouse, Harvick. I mean, out of that group, I would probably have to say, Logano was probably the biggest surprise to miss it.
He is.
I'd like to say Harvick, but they just had nothing all year in most facets. They had a couple chances. Maybe they could have, backed their way into a win. Just personally as a fan, I'd love to see him get at least one more place spoiler at some point over these last handful of races. But I don't, if it's going to happen, it maybe is at Phoenix and he becomes the first, non-playoff Final Four to go out and win ahead of the, the actual champion. But, just a disappointing last year for him. But I mean, Logano's probably, like I said, the biggest surprise to have missed the cut.
He is, for sure. I mean, you look at, so he's led 260 laps this year. 140 of them were in the race that he won in Atlanta. And that was all the way back at the 5th race of the year. So outside of that, I mean, whether it's him, Ryan Blaney, I know he won Charlotte and dominated, but since then, he doesn't have a top 5 finish.
Yeah.
And you think of Logano, you think of Harvick, those are two guys and teams, two champions that can wheel their cars to finishes that maybe they don't deserve, right?
Sure.
And that's just, it's been the case a little bit this year with Harvick, but Logano, it's just, you're not accustomed to seeing this, especially with him and Penske, and really Penske overall, because the 2-car, the 21, I mean, they haven't really had much to, gloat about this season either.
I'm with you. Now, looking, going into Talladega and then, wrapping up this round at the Roval, we could potentially see some surprises here, just because of those two style of races. Tyler Reddick sitting in 10th. If you tell me Tyler Reddick wins at the Roval, I'm not going to be surprised by that. You tell me Bubba Wallace wins at Talladega, I'm not going to be surprised by that. And we're potentially talking about Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch not making the cut at that point.
And Kyle Larson. And I say that because he's 2 points above the cut line. He wrecked late at Texas, obviously, after dominating the second half of the race.
Yep.
And super speedways are not his best friend. That's kind of putting it lightly.
Brad Keselowski could go out and win this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised by that,
Right. Larson's wrecked out in 4 of the 5 super speedways this year. So he said publicly, like, he doesn't have the confidence to make moves. He's definitely gotten better and been in more contention. Like, he almost, on the final lap of the 500 this year, he was involved in a wreck, but he was up there battling for the win. So he's definitely, I think his confidence improved on these tracks. But if you have a bad day at Talladega and you're 20 points out going into the Roval, that's almost must-win territory.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I mean, the biggest, I guess, is it the biggest surprise that Chris Buescher is where he is? I mean, the season, the way he ended the season, back-to-back wins, at Michigan, and I forget the other track that he had the win at.
Daytona.
Yes. Just here's somebody that, quote unquote, had the asterisk next to his name because his only win was that rain shortened race at Pocono back in 2016, 17, something like
2016.
That. And to
then
come
won
out
at Bristol last year.
Yeah, right. And to just dominate those races and put himself on the map at the end of the regular season and to be sitting third right now. I mean, all he has to do, knock on wood, because I don't want to jinx him because I want to see him advance. He's just got to go run clean races these next 2 races and then go worry about the Final Four.
and he excels on road courses and super speedways. Like before this little run here, that's what he was known for.
That was his bread and butter. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And he won the last super speedway at Daytona. You asked if it was a surprise, and I think it was a surprise at the beginning, but it can only be a surprise for so long, right? Like if you constantly bring speed to the racetrack and you're constantly putting finishes together, leading laps, finishing the top 5, like not a surprise anymore. So to see him third on the playoff grid going into Talladega, anything can happen. But yeah, he's in a great position right now, 22 points above the cut line.
I love it. Let's take turns here and go to the last topic that I have for us here, which is, as we're wrapping up another NASCAR season, always the talk is silly season stories and all of that. It's something that Jayski has done meticulously for years. It's something that I know everybody goes to for the information, is the silly season. And I want to start off first with Matt DiBenedetto, and just I want to get your take on the situation in terms of, here's somebody that, lost his cup ride, went to the Truck Series, raced with the team for, we'll call it almost 2 years, never got to victory lane, made the playoffs, got bumped out of the first round, and now bumped out of the ride. What is your take on, what went down there at Rackley Ware Racing?
I wish I knew.
Fair enough.
I say that because it's so odd. They missed, like you said, they get in the playoffs, which is a huge achievement for that team, which doesn't have a ton of funding coming in the doors, or at least additional funding that the team's putting into it. They make the playoffs. They miss the first round by only a few points, and then he's out of a ride 2 races later. So kind of a bummer for DiBenedetto, because we've seen what he can do, and he's always overachieved to a degree. And to see him out of a ride, I mean, you would think someone would take a chance on him, even if he brings limited funding to the table for next year. But I mean, we look at the silly season at the Cup level, and that's almost complete. But then you look at Xfinity and trucks, really hasn't even begun. So I'm sure he'll find a place, a landing spot.
What are some spots and rides, just to kind of fill everybody in, even with the Cup, where are some changes that we're going to see across the series here?
Well, at the Cup Series, we don't know about the 10 yet with Almirola. For a while last year, really almost 2 years ago, he announced he was going to retire after the end of the 22 season. Smithfield wanted him back for the 23 season. They announced it as a multi-year deal, but I'm sure there's an option in there. I'm not sure if Smithfield's coming back. Not sure if Almirola's coming back. If Smithfield doesn't come back, I wouldn't think Almirola's coming back.
Sure.
It's kind of a package deal. So that could leave the 10 open. That could be a spot for someone like a Cole Custer per se. You look at the Xfinity level, you got the 20 to fill with John Hunter moving up.
Where's Hunter going? What ride is Hunter going into?
He's going to the 42.
42.
Okay. They announced it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's right.
Cup level.
Yeah. Yep.
Austin Hill's coming back. That's good for our CR. AJ Allmendinger, we talk about him in Collie. He could be going back down to the Xfinity Series. We're not sure about that yet. Obviously, they made the announcement with Daniel Hemrick at Bristol, but there's a lot of shuffling pieces, and it should get interesting here in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I love it. Dustin, what are you working on? Anything you want to plug or anything you want to, tease out that's coming out soon?
Sure. This week I got a story on Brennan Poole. He's having a reset year with JD Motorsports on the 6 team. He's going to be in the Cup race this weekend for Rick Ware Racing. So look for that this weekend, and then also fantasy for NASCAR.com.
Awesome, man. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. That was a ton of fun. Enjoyed the wrestling conversation and, of course, the NASCAR talk. And, hopefully we can maybe do a season recap or something like that. And, love to get your takes of visiting Phoenix and all that good stuff as well here once we wrap this bad boy up.
Yes, sir. Always enjoy talking wrestling and racing with you, and thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you, brother. All right, man. Lap Traffic Nation, there you have Dustin Albino from jayski.com. Thanks, man. We'll catch you soon.
We'll see ya.
See ya. All right, Lap Traffic Nation. I think Dustin and I covered a lot of ground there. There's no doubt about that. Wrestling, all 3 series, silly season, all of that good stuff. Just a great conversation. Always enjoy talking with it. Just like Jeff Striegel, it just flows. You don't even need to write anything down. I knew a couple talking points I wanted to hit on, and that basically led into almost 40 minutes of conversation, which is just awesome there. So, all right, let's do a little Lap Traffic social media. Everybody, make sure you check out the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com, Facebook Lap Traffic Podcast, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all at Lap Traffic PC. If you've made it this far into the show, please leave a review. You can check out the show on iTunes, Podbean, Alexa, all of your favorite podcast hosting sites. Make sure you stay tuned because we are going to do an end of season giveaway here at some point. But I also, as you all know, have stickers and koozies for free. If you want one, all you have to do, fill out the contact page on the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com. Send me a DM on Twitter, at me, whatever the case may be. I am happy to send them out to you. And I mean, really, like I said, Dustin and I covered it all. So we are actually going to close this thing out with a little Lap Traffic fantasy. Everybody, make sure you get your, well, and not everybody, anybody that's still in the playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
Make sure you get your picks in by 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. We're down to the top 12, and things are definitely heating up, which is awesome. My picks this weekend, Ross Chastain, John Hunter Nemechek, pretty solid. Most everybody did pretty good in the Xfinity Series. I think 10 out of 12 took John Hunter Nemechek, so everyone scored pretty well there and picked up a bonus point for the most part. A lot of people, though, took Kyle Larson, which did not favor well for them in the Cup race. But let's do a reset here. Here is the top 12 as it stands. 2 more races to go before another cutoff. In first place, with 116 points after the reset and this past weekend at Texas, is David Mullins. In second place with 105 is Andrew Yu. In third place with 104, yours truly. In fourth place with 99 points is Dan Sherwood. In fifth with 92, Jonathan Lilly. In sixth with 90 is Steven, DFS NASCAR guy. In seventh with 87 is Kevin Hahn. In eighth with 85 is John Etwinsel. In ninth with 84 is Joe Hewson. In 10th with 82 is Mark Luddington. In 11th with 81 is Benton Wilson. And in 12th with 80, Matt Dombrowski. So, I mean, we're only talking 10 points between 6th and 12th. It is anybody's game. Bonus points in first, Andrew Yu 31, Jonathan Lilly 24, David Mullins 19, John Etwinsel 17, Steven with 16. I've got 14, Dan Sherwood, Kevin Hahn, and Bent Wilson have 13, Matt Dombrowski 12, Joe Houston 10. So there is how that is shaping up. All right. I think it is time to make some picks. All right, Lap Traffic Fantasy. We are headed back to Talladega for the last super speedway race of the season. Chevy's won the last 3 races at Talladega. Chase won this race last year. Kyle Busch picked up the win earlier this year. Some very strong super speedway drivers are still in the playoffs. You got Keselowski, you got Wallace, you got Reddick, you got Hamlin, just to name a few. Actually, most of the top 12 are pretty solid at these races. But we all know that big one or big ones are coming. Who will survive? Will someone play spoiler? We will find out this weekend. First, it's time for my picks. Going a little different because it is Talladega. Truck Series, I am going to go with Ty Majeski. And in the Cup Series, I am going to go with... I actually had the 45 of Tyler Reddick written down. I'm like, no. I got to save him. I need to save him for the Roval. So early spoiler for next week that I will be going with Tyler Reddick. I am going to go with the 6 of Brad Keselowski this weekend at Talladega. All right, Lap Traffic Nation, that is going to do it for episode 322 of the Lap Traffic Podcast. Make sure you check out the website, thelaptrafficpodcast.com, Facebook, The Lap Traffic Podcast, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, all at Lap Traffic PC. Huge thanks to Dustin Albino for coming on the show this week. I'll see if we can piece something together next week, see what's going to happen throughout here as the season comes to an end here. Just a couple weeks, really, man. It's crazy. It's October already. Football's in full gear. NASCAR's wrapping up. All of that good stuff. Don't get caught chasing the lucky dog. Tune in each and every week to the Lap Traffic Podcast. See ya.